Please be advised that this episode may contain triggering and/or sensitive material for survivors.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hope Discovered podcast. My name is Bill. If you are new to the program, what we do here is showcase stories of hope. And a lot of times this can be from providers, or a lot of times it can be from people who have actually gone on the journey. And today, that's the case. We are talking to Chris today. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well, Bill. How are you? Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Just a little background on you. Are you from Stark County?
Yes, I was born in Massillon at Doctor's Hospital, 1970, December 24th, Christmas Eve, as a matter of fact. Grew up in Canton, went to school in Canton, Baxter, Sowers, McKinley, and pretty much grew up in Canton my whole life.
Awesome. Doctor's Hospital. Now, that's been gone for a while.
Yeah.
It's still sitting vacant, isn't it?
Last time I was out that way, I saw a vacant building, yeah.
That's a shame, because that was such a staple for so many years there. Yeah. When you're trying to relax and enjoy yourself, you're a sports fan, I take it?
Absolutely. Cleveland Browns all the way, huh? Go Browns. Cleveland Indians fan. Yes, I played sports my whole life growing up in the Southwest End Mighty Mites. I went to play football at Sowers, played football and baseball at McKinley.
Great. How would you describe your life now? You obviously are on the right path with what's going on. How would you describe your life now? What are you doing with your life?
My life right now is better than what it ever has been, even before I was an addict, which I really can't remember as far back. I was always drinking,
really?
or drugs really didn't come into play until I was in my 30s, I would say. But now, yeah, since I've turned my life around. I have a new appreciation, more of an appreciation for the things that I took advantage of. And anything from, waking up in the morning and having that cup of coffee, talking with my dad in the morning before I go to work, to, on my days off, going out and hearing the birds chirping and smelling that fresh air. Yeah. Just things like that I took for granted. Sunsets, sunrises. I take it all in.
Yeah. I talked to a young lady here about a year ago, and she said the sound of the rain. The sound of the rain was something that was very important to her now. Yeah. You had mentioned your problems sort of began very early. Were you a good student? How was I just want to get a feel for kind of maybe what led you into this. Did you have a lot of friends?
Yeah, growing up, I had my own circle of friends. I wouldn't say I was real popular, but I was popular. As for a student, I was up and down. Yeah. I was always, if I was interested in something, I would take to it. If I wasn't, I didn't care anything about it. Yeah. If it wasn't for being eligible to play sports, I probably never would have graduated, because, at school really wasn't a big thing. It wasn't my thing. Now it's a different story, and now I find interest in stuff. But, back then I was just more about it. I guess you'd say, having fun and playing sports and being with my friends and not really taking things serious. Yeah. But, as I got older, now I look back, I kind of regret some things that I've done. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When did
you mentioned that alcohol came first. Mm-hmm. When did, looking back on it with the benefit of hindsight, when did you start to realize, at what age and what circumstances were things starting to escalate?
Well, my family everybody was a drinker. Some people, like my mother and my grandfather and my uncle, it took a hold of them. They were alcoholics. But like my dad and my grandmother, they would drink, but they could always put it down. Yeah. My grandmother was one to stay up late watching old movies, and she'd go to bed at 2:00 in the morning. I was raised by my grandparents. I'd wait for her to go to bed. She always had a bottle of vodka or Kahlua around, and I would sneak into the cabinet. And that was like my first really experience of drinking. I mean, I was always around it when I was a little kid. And everybody's having a good time around me, and I'm thinking it's fun, and then I was thinking, when I get old enough to drink, this is going to be fun. This is what I'm going to do. I never thought of the consequences or that it would take a hold of me, or I'm not going to be that person. Yeah. They say it's hereditary. I believe, it could be like any other disease, really.
Yes, there are some people that when it comes to alcohol, their body chemistry certainly leads them, to become addicted. You had mentioned your 30s, where things stepped up a notch. During that 10 years, during your 20s, was it like a constant progression with the alcohol? You felt a need that you needed to go to the next level. What caused the big step in your 30s to get into more what we might call drugs, for lack of a better word, even though alcohol is a drug?
Well, I was always the type of person that, if I seen something, they would always say, these are the consequences of this drug, or these are the consequences of what happened. Well, I would never look at it as a sign of I'd always look at it like, hey, if that's what the effect is, I want to see what that's like. LSD, cocaine, heroin, I've tried everything. In my 20s, I always drank. I had a friend of mine, he passed away back in 2009, but he got me smoking pot. And it was cool, I did it, and we were drinking. It just became nothing, but it never really stopped me from working. It never stopped me from, having a social life. And then I started selling cars at the age of 29 years old. And in the car business, I started meeting more people, started going to parties, and I was introduced to cocaine. And that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. When it took a hold of me, Bill, I'm telling you, it took a hold of me. It didn't let go. And then I started getting in trouble. I went to prison a few times. And then one of the times I went to SRCCC when I got out, I had to go and I met a girl in there. She was a heroin addict, and I ended up hanging around with her for a few years and got on that. Thank God it didn't grab me. Heroin, downers, and opiates never grabbed. I was always like the speed, or the cocaine, meth, stuff like that. So thank God heroin and stuff and the opiates didn't grab me. But neither here nor there. I was still addicted to cocaine. I was still addicted to speed, and I was still addicted to alcohol. And at that point, it started spiraling out of control. And really, I didn't even really realize it until I was in my 40s. So for 15 years, I was doing it, and I was hiding it. Maybe I was hiding it well. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe people just looked at me and said they knew I was on it or didn't say anything, but I thought I was doing. But I still held a job, but then in my 40s came a time that I didn't even care anymore.
Yeah.
And the only thing I really cared about was, I'd go to work for a month, save a few paychecks, and so I'd have enough just, to get high, and I'd quit, and I'd go on a bender.
Yeah.
And it just started becoming, just a crazy, out of control experience.
Yeah. I always ask, and for everybody, it's a little different. But there comes a point, I guess, when the light comes on. There's a lot of people have described it to me as when you finally hit rock bottom.
Right.
Is when you realize I either have to do something, or this is going to end very badly.
Right.
How did that happen for you?
Well, I'm 50 now. I just turned 50 in December. Probably from the time I was about 45 years old, I knew something had to be done. But between the years, from the time I was from 45 till I was 48, them 3 years, I knew something had to be done, but I still, I guess you would say, didn't care, or was kind of hoping maybe I would come out of it. Because when I smoked pot, the last time I smoked pot was 15 years ago, and I never had a desire to do it. So I'm thinking, well, maybe cocaine and stuff will wear off.
Yeah.
Well, I started losing jobs. I started giving away clothes. I started giving away everything I had, watches, you name, all the material things. Now I don't have anything. I look in my closet every day and I see ratty t-shirts. I see ratty shoes and jeans with holes. And that's my daily wardrobe. And if I had a job, I'd be lucky. I'm living with my father and I'm laying on a recliner on a daily basis. And him and I are arguing because, he's looking at me like, what kind of son do I have? You know what I mean? And that still wasn't even enough at that point in time.
Yeah.
But then there was a point in time from the time I was 48 until I went into Wilson Hall in, December of 2019. For a year and a half before that is when I really needed to stop, and I couldn't, and I knew it had a hold of me. And I didn't know what to do. So finally, my son started. He said, "That's it." He turned 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, and I went from the cool dad who drank and everybody liked to the outcast, and now I'm embarrassing him. So he started to distance himself from me along with my father, and it was either I'm going to end up living under a bridge, or I have to do something.
Right.
And I was on probation. I was in trouble. I had, that was my, third or fourth felony. I was on probation here in Canton, and I was failing drug tests left and right. It was so bad that I knew I had to go and see him on a Wednesday, and I'm out getting high on a Tuesday night knowing I had a drug test, and I didn't care. But I went in and I asked him, I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. You know I'm failing drug tests. Either put me in prison or put me in rehab. And either way, I didn't care at that point in time because, hey, I'd have took prison because if I was off the streets for a couple of years, at least I'm not getting high anymore.
Yeah.
So he put me in Wilson Hall and it changed my life.
Okay. That was my next question was how you reached out for help. Mm-hmm. So it really was that choice.
Through my probation officer, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. As you were recovering, one of the questions that I always have, people often mention relapses. They feel like they don't want to go through recovery once they start to feel a little better. They might want to give up on it. I know I got this under control now. Everything's cool. I got it now. Yeah. Did you have any problems sticking with the program?
Well, when I got out of Wilson Hall in February of 2019, and I never touched drugs again, which I thought, and personally, I won a battle here. I won the war. Yeah. But I kept drinking. And that was just what I realized was I was an alcoholic with a drug problem. I wasn't a drug addict with an alcohol problem. Okay. Alcohol was there from the beginning, and it was the last thing to go. Mm-hmm. So even though I didn't touch drugs since I think the last time I used cocaine would have been February 23rd, 2019. Okay. And I went into Wilson Hall on the 25th of November. It was in December. I'm sorry. I haven't touched it since then, but I kept drinking. And it was just as bad. I would have a job, and if I didn't want to go to work, I would call off, get drunk, and I call off 3-4 days and lose the job. Or if I had the job and I got paid, lunchtime comes, I don't want to be here, I leave and get drunk. Yeah. And then I got my 4th DUI. Yeah. Yeah. So here again, with the benefit of hindsight, you know what you went through. Mm-hmm. You know what you tried to convince yourself about. And maybe some people tried to reach you. I don't know. But you probably were kind of the feeling, I got this under control. Mm-hmm. And so many times here again, I've talked to people and they indicate that unfortunately, the elevator just has to go to the bottom floor. Right? Mm-hmm. When I'm on the 2nd or 3rd on the way down, things that I'm hearing aren't helping me. Mm-hmm. Is there something that you would want to say as your own bit of advice for somebody who's listening to this and they say, yeah, I use drugs, but I'm not like that. I got it under control. Mm-hmm. What would you say to that person? You'll never have it under control. I mean, just like when me in my 20s and in my 30s, I was using and I was still functional, but eventually it overtook me. Mm-hmm. It will eventually overtake a person. Yeah. There's no way you can stay in control of it. Yeah. Because, even if you still work, you might not have your full potential. You might not have a nice car. You might not have clothes. You're getting paid and you're blowing your money. You might still pay your rent. You might not have money for food because you went out and bought drugs. Right. It will overcome you eventually. Yes. Yeah. Eventually it will. Because I never thought that it would me. I thought I had it under control. Shoot, it took me from the time I was in my mid to late teens until I was in my mid 40s until it actually overcome me. Yeah. Well, maybe it overcame me before that, but I didn't realize it until then. Yeah.
What's the best way you feel, knowing what you've been through the program with other people? I'm sure you've shared stories. What would be the best way for someone who maybe is having that realization? One of the things we always say is there's never, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to addiction, when it comes to a lot of other things, there's never a bad time to ask for help. Right. Today is always the best day. Always. Now is always the best time. Sure. What is the best way that you could tell someone to get the courage that it's better to face this than to deny it? What do you have something in yourself now that gives you that you would advise to somebody that you got to find that inner strength, you got to find that truth?
Yeah, well, I'm a member of a lot of sobriety groups on Facebook, and a lot of people say, hey, I want to go to rehab, but I'm scared, or I'm going to rehab, and I'm scared. Okay, there's nothing to be scared of, because if you're afraid you're going to lose your job, because you're going to rehab, or if you're afraid that people are going to look at you and think you're bad because, you went to rehab, you know what? They already are. They know you're an addict. You're going to lose your job eventually. They're already seeing this. Your parents, your friends, people, they already know. So you really have nothing to lose, and there's nothing really to be afraid of.
Yes.
Everybody's recovery is different. What worked for me might not work for the next person.
Sure.
But I could just tell you the best thing I ever did was ask for help.
Yeah.
My rock bottom was my son telling me that he didn't want anymore. I couldn't have that anymore. As much as I've lost in my life, him telling me that. So I knew I had to do it. So, I've been to SRCCC. It didn't work. So I was kind of skeptical about rehabs, but I've always heard about Wilson Hall. Mm-hmm. And I asked him to put me there, and it really worked for me.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, if you're afraid to go to rehab because you're afraid you're going to lose jobs or friends or family, man, you're going to lose them anyway, or if you haven't already. Yeah. So you really have nothing to lose. And they always said when I was in rehab, your sobriety, your recovery comes before anything and everything. It comes over a job. It comes over your kids. It comes over your everything. Because how are you going to be an effective parent, husband, wife, employee if you're screwed up?
Yep. That's very true. Yeah. One of the things that I would tell someone, I can't speak for all employers. Okay. Like you said, there's no guarantees in life. Everyone's journey is going to be different. But as a general rule, your odds are much better going to your employer and saying, hey, look, I have a problem. I've been in touch with CommQuest, or I've been in touch with a similar organization. I'm undergoing treatment. I'm working on it, and I will keep you updated. Your chances are much better with your employer doing that than failing a drug test or getting arrested at some point.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So yes, absolutely. The quicker you grab on to the control handles, the better you will be.
You make a valid point there, because a lot of people this day and age, especially with the epidemic of opiates and everything that's going on, you go to your employee, they want to help now. They don't look down on people anymore, because it's such a rampant epidemic now. Yes. I mean, everyone's being touched by it. If it's not an immediate family member or a friend, it's someone who knows someone who knows someone. So now, if you go to your employer and you ask for help, they're more than willing. They'll probably pay for it. Yeah. So there's no reason, unfortunately, there's people out there that are lost that don't realize they have a problem or don't care. But then there's people out there like I was, that, they know they have a problem. They want to stop and they just can't do it. Yeah. So seeking help is always the best thing. Yeah. And even if you put your life on pause for 6 months. Yeah. The quality of life you're going to have over after them 6 months, if you defeat this thing, is so much better than what it would ever could possibly have been. Yeah.
One of the things that I try to address during these interviews, one of the reasons why a lot of people are hesitant to come forward is because of stigma. They're afraid that people are going to judge them and so on. And unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why people don't come forward. On the subject of stigma, what would be your advice to someone who may be listening to this? And this is going to sound pretty brutal, but as a representative of this organization, I've been confronted with it when I greet the public. I've been confronted with, my daughter or son didn't choose to have diabetes, and they, put addiction and other things surrounding it in the light of it was a choice. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but I always point out a few basic things. That the road to addiction is different for everyone. A lot of times it's compounded with mental health issues. People are battling depression and other things. They try to self-medicate. You have other people who have been victims of abuse. You have other people who have been indoctrinated into the lifestyle. And not the least of which are people who, through pain medications and so on and so forth, have gone down this road. So there's a lot of different ways that those addictions begin, and those addictions do change your composition in your mind, and physical changes begin. And once that starts happening, it's very hard to undo. And at that point, one of the counselors I was talking to here recently said people aren't at that point. Once they're addicted, they're not taking those drugs to feel good. They're taking those drugs not to be sick.
Right.
So on the subject of stigma, since you've been through that journey, what would you say to people who still have it in their head, let's say a very dismissive attitude towards addiction?
like you say, it's the people don't start out saying, hey, my goal is to be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
To be controlled by a substance. I guess those are the people that really haven't been touched personally by this disease.
Yeah.
And I see it every day. It was their choice.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, you know what? But the people that say it's their choice, you know what? It was their choice too to have a beer or maybe get high years down. It just, fortunately, it wasn't in their genetic makeup to grab them like it does them, other people.
Yeah, sure.
So, there's no one's choice. I didn't, it wasn't my choice to, when I had a couple beers with my friends starting out for me to become an alcoholic I'm 50 years old. I should be way ahead of the game than what I am right now, but I'm not. I'm starting over again now at this age. So no one really has that choice. So anybody that looks and says, yeah, it's their choice. Sure, it was their choice to get higher, but it wasn't their choice to become an addict.
Yeah.
I don't know of anyone whose goal in life was to be an addict.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I just think that the people that look, I personally think, and maybe it's because I was an addict and maybe I feel a little anger towards that is just because, people, I wouldn't want somebody to judge me. I wouldn't judge someone else over that because those people obviously just haven't been touched by it. And
yeah, I understand.
It really, I really do believe it is a disease because like they taught when I was in Wells Hall, the only one thing they taught, everybody they have those genes, and everybody, just like cancer, okay, everybody has it, okay, everybody has the gene for it. So whatever it was that would cause a 20-year-old to get it or a 75-year-old to get it, that gene wasn't turned on until then, or whatever it is they did. And some people don't have it; they could drink their whole life and never become addicted. Some people, like me, it hit me early. Like, my mother and probably my uncle and my grandfather, they were controlled by it.
Yeah.
So for someone to say it's a choice, sure, it was a choice to drink and use, but it wasn't a choice to become an addict. Yeah.
And I would only add that whether it's overeating or whether it's sweets or gambling,
right?
A lot of people can enjoy themselves for a weekend and not worry about it for a while. Other people, they're back the next weekend and the next weekend, and pretty soon it's every day.
Well, it's funny you would say that because I've been to Vegas a few times in my life in Atlantic City. I enjoy it, but I never play scratch tickets. I never play Ohio Lottery. It's something that never grabbed me.
Yeah.
But alcohol was.
Yep.
So it could be, and overeating. I mean, I like to eat, but I don't overeat.
Yeah, sure. And then my only point is that any one of those things can grab somebody, and it's just by the grace of God, as they always say.
Well, the funny thing is, I was watching a video on Facebook of a guy who's a professional when it comes to addiction, and it doesn't matter what the addiction is. It's just it's something that people are looking towards to make them feel better about whatever it is. If overeating makes them feel better because that's what it is, or if gambling makes them feel better, or drugs, it's something that makes them feel better about themselves and what they're going through in life.
Yeah. Sure.
So
my last question, we always end on our slogan here at CommQuest is hope happens here. Mm-hmm. So I always ask, you've mentioned the problems in the community, an epidemic. A lot of people out there are not only suffering directly from these issues, but they have family members who are going through the journey. Being that almost everyone, either directly or indirectly, is being touched by it, what message of hope would you have for someone, for people in general, looking towards the future? If it's in their family, if it's in their community, and it's causing them grief, what message of hope would you have about recovery?
Well, being that now that it's such an epidemic, and that now society is not looking at it as that person is an outcast. Now they're looking at it like, hey, this could happen to me. This could happen to my family. And it's not, I don't want to say it's accepted, but now they're looking at it more of as a disease, and that there's so much more help out there, like Wilson Hall, like you folks here at CommQuest, even private rehabilitation centers. My sobriety group, I have a little bit over 255 members on it, and there's people in there that are lost, and they've reached out to me and my girl, she's one, and an admin, and there's others in there that have been sober. There's one guy who's been in there he's been sober since 2011. And he's there every time somebody says, I need help, he's there. So there's so many people out there to offer help, and there's so many programs now. And, we were talking before the program about insurance, there's, if they don't have a way to pay for it, there's ways that these like Wilson Halls and these guys, they'll get insurance for you. There's help out there. They're not shunned upon like it used to be. And,
right.
And so that's, and I can always say, just, never give up, man.
Yes.
Once you give up, it's over.
Yeah.
Never give up.
You never give up. As long as you're trying and as long as you're aware you have a problem, which is an important part of the puzzle, there is hope for you and there's people that can help you.
Absolutely.
We are CommQuest Services Incorporated, but quite frankly, no matter where you may be listening to this, there are agencies all over now. It's just a matter of doing a few Google searches, picking up the phone, calling some community centers and finding out what resources are available for you now.
Absolutely.
The awareness is there. We've been talking to Chris. Chris, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For sharing your story. This has been the Hope Discovered podcast. If you want more information about CommQuest, please go to CommQuest.org. Once again, that's CommQuest.org. You've been listening to the Hope Discovered podcast. My name is Bill. Thank you very much for listening to our program today.